That's for tomorrow night. Get a chance to read through it. Dawn from legal should be there to answer any questions.
7 plus 2 is 9. Okay. I will never say for a second. Your life away. Okay, good evening. It is 5:31. We will call the Environmental Services Utility Board meeting to order for Monday, August 21st, 2023. At this time, we will begin with public comments. Would anyone like to come forth with public comments tonight? Seeing none, we will move on to item 2, roll call.
Mayor Curtis.
Present.
Alderwoman Lewis. Alderman Cruz. Alderman O'Brien. Here. Alderman Ozinga.
Present.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Jones.
Present.
Clerk Gall.
Here.
Thank you.
We do have a quorum. Next is item 3, the approval of minutes. Those will be distributed at a later date. We do not have those completed for tonight, so we'll bring those forth along with tonight's minutes at the September meeting. So we'll move on to item 4. You have the bills before you for August 21st, 2023. Those bills are in the amount of $710,638.98. Is there a motion for the approval of the bills?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Alderwoman Swanson. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
We have a second from Alderman Osinga. Is there any questions or comments regarding the bills? Alderman Osinga.
Mayor, check number 33831, friendly signs, letter K for sign for $1,240.
Director Lopez.
So that was a bill from about a year ago. It should have been on last year's budget, but they didn't get it so long. So it's the new letters at the entrance on Kennedy Drive and work, because those letters were missing, so we replaced all of them. We had the sign painted as well as new letters.
Okay, thank you.
Comptroller Cabal.
Thank you, Mayor. This also was the last
hang on.
meeting where we will have items back.
Comptroller Cabal, can you, sorry, I didn't have your mic on.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is the last meeting where we can accrue items back to get the audit closed out. So this did get accrued back to the last fiscal year, as it should have been, like Director Lopez said.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez, can you just state that again? I had your mic off. Sorry about that, just for the...
So those are the letters that we had replaced from the the Kankakee sign on Kennedy Drive. There was a few letters missing, so we had them new ones put on and it painted back.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments regarding the bills? You also have in here, you see we did approve these at the last city council meeting. There was also on August 7th, $310,137.37 that was approved at our prior council meeting. So the total bills for the month of August for ESU are $1,020,776.35. Seeing no more questions, roll call.
Alderwoman Lewis. Aye. Alderman Cruz. Alderman O'Brien.
Aye.
Alderman Ozinga.
Aye.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Jones.
Aye.
Clerk Gall.
Aye, but I need to abstain from check 33856 due to a conflict.
Okay, bills are approved. We'll move into item 5, and that is reports. We'll start with our monthly activity, and we will start with Mr. Lopez, the ESU Street and Alley report.
Good evening. Everything's pretty much in your report. I got nothing. We're pretty much caught up from the storm cleanup. We did get our second loader. We're still waiting for information on the third from the insurance company to see which route we're going to have to go with that.
Can you maybe go a little detail on the 3 loaders? I'm not sure all the aldermen are completely aware.
So we have 3 in-loaders at the Department of Public Works, and one is a very old one. I think it's like an 89 Caterpillar, which last year you guys approved $25,000 for a new motor, which thank you, because that was the only one that was running for a while. And then we have a John Deere that had some hydraulic, or a Volvo that had some hydraulic pumps that went out. And so we had to keep that around, but we couldn't use it, but we had to use it for Music Fest, so that delayed the process. So it's back now. And then our newest one, which is a 2014 Doosan, was helping cleaning up. We were cleaning up Marycrest from the tornado, and the operator on the last pass hit a manhole. It's a water valve. It's actually a water valve shut off in the middle of the street, and it was sticking up a little bit. And he hit it and bent the arms of it. And that metal's 1 3/4 inches, so he hit it pretty good, to where he went through the wind. His head went through the windshield, scalped him a little bit. He's okay, but we're dealing with the insurance company right now to see if it's totaled or fixable, and I'm waiting for numbers on that. So there may be a new inloader here coming through.
And we bring that up because it was right when we had the timing of the microburst tornado went through the north side of Kankakee. So I know there's still a lot of, I don't know, still I shouldn't say, but there was a lot of branches that people had in their alleys, and they were down to one machine trying to cover a city where normally on a big storm like that, you'd be using three. So we just asking for everybody's patience a little bit as they're trying to clean it up the best they can right now, but they will get to the branches and the trees that are still out there.
Yep.
Alvin Jones.
How much is the inloader? Because this sounds like we really need to look at. We invest.
I got all kinds of numbers. So
Yeah, I mean,
they
rough.
range. They range from a used one, which is which we're Frank and myself, we're okay with a Volvo, which we have, and it's proven to be a good machine to us. So we can buy a year-old one that's got 126 hours, because it goes by hours. And without the clamp bucket, we're probably about $180,000.
Okay.
And that's got 126 hours. It's used. It's got, and the nice thing is if we did go that route, they're all Sourcewell, so we don't have to wait to put them out to bid and stuff like that. But there's variety of things that we can go. We can get used. We can get older ones that got more hours on them, anywhere between 2,000 to 5,000 hours, and it lowers the price about 20,000.
So we're talking about $250,000 for a machine, pretty much.
That's a very high-end machine. The Caterpillar would be like $209,000, but then you got to switch out things that we need here. So it would probably be like $218,000 for a brand new one. But the Volvo, which I've seen and I actually like, it's about $175,000. That's with everything that we need.
Because it sounds like we don't need a machine. You went all the way back. What was that? 89 or something?
Yeah, that's one of ours, but it's something that we use. We're using it now. It's a workhorse. So.
I truly.
Oh yeah. No. Our
at some point, come on. I mean, it's enough. We're gonna be what we say we are gonna be. We need to go ahead and just put that in the whole plan. And let's work on getting one within a couple of years, like we get everything else. I believe we can do that.
I'd like it.
He's asked.
I'd like it. I mean, I'll get you all the numbers you guys want.
Please, because
I have them sitting on my desk right now. So.
I mean, I believe we can do it in a phase in or something.
But we also need to see. We're jumping because we also need to see what the insurance company is going to do with the one we have now. So we're waiting on that.
Okay.
So we could get money back from the one that was totaled, if it's totaled. So that we would, but we're going to have to get one sooner than later, probably.
Because there's a lot of problems within the city, and I know, people be fussing, which is fine, because at the end of the day, we can't just keep on. We got a lot of problems in the 7th Ward that we need to have a lot of work done, trees and all of that. We're going to have to do it. At some point, we can't be running, and we're going to have a crew over here, over there. I'm not even saying it's going to have to do it this year, but there's a lot of things that need to be done. There's going to be a lot more pressure on DPW, and I don't want to just be complaining. And we tied your arms, because I'm telling you, every year these trees are getting higher, trash, brush is getting bigger. I don't know what goes on a lot of the other sides of town, but it's going to put a lot of demanding work on the equipment, and we just need to prepare for it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, this year, his new toy was the new dump truck.
Okay.
at about 190,000, so that was our gift to you. No, I'm just kidding.
And that was
Each
actually,
year, we do have to budget different things with different equipment, so that was the big expense this year, and they have asked for other stuff, and we are trying to fit stuff into our capital budgets and different things.
Okay.
To be honest, really, this year, we've really concentrated a lot on properties in this year's budget.
Okay.
A lot of deferred maintenance, that, as we talked about, the tuck pointing on this building, the roof, the sidewalk, different things that, we've got buildings that we've got to prevent water damage to and other things, and we got to keep doing equipment too, but there is a 5-year plan that we've put together that we're looking at, so.
Okay. That's-
Chairman.
Alderman Marzak.
So, I mean, that seems very low hours on that machine, so, I mean, I don't know how much depreciation would be, but what hypothetical number would you expect them to be paying out if, you know, if they total it?
from what I understand, I'm still, the last number I got from the adjuster was, it was insured for $95,000 minus $1,000 deductible, but I don't know if they're going to depreciate it by 20%. I don't know how our insurance plan is written, so that I don't know. So we could get 94,000, or we can get 94 minus, 20%. So for depreciation.
So I just wanted him to give an update on some of the equipment, and they did a pretty good job of working with one instead of three, but they're getting caught up, so. Any other questions for Mr. Lopez? Alderman O'Brien.
Mr. Lopez, how did the summer employment group work out this year?
Okay. It was a little rough in the beginning, finding out where the kids were comfortable and what they like to do. We don't want to put them in a job they don't like to do. But that's Frank. Frank dealt with the kids day to day, and he did a great job. It took me about a month to learn their names, but Frank did it day to day, and he did a great job. But it went okay. I don't think I would take 16 next time. That's for sure. I'd probably take 10.
So that was the question, or that was a comment that they had mentioned, that 16 is a large number of summer help to manage and still be able to get the day-to-day functions that the full-time employees deal with. So, so there's that fine line of, sounds great to hire as many people as we can, but it also sometimes proves difficult of, getting things like streets, not having everybody manage summer help, but also having them out getting done the work. So it seems to be that number you said, somewhere between 8 and 10 or 8 and 12. So.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Noble?
Yes. Is that the kids that were going around and helping people clean their yards?
That was, we maintain city properties. Okay. I know Alderman Prude's out with the school kids, and he mows grass too. But we painted curbs. We hit the entrances into the city with weed whackers and stuff like that, and they did a great job. But like I said, it took us a little bit to figure out where they were good, where they were comfortable at.
Thank you.
Any other questions for DPW? Okay. Thank you, sir.
I
Thank
just
you.
had one more, I'm sorry.
sorry, I'm sorry. Alderwoman Swanson.
I just would like to, I know that equipment's not in the ballgame, but it's something, like, have numbers together for when we do get an answer from the insurance company.
I have those. I have used machines. I have new machines. I have them with the 4-in-1 clam bucket that we need, which is anywhere between $10,000 to $16,000 add-on, because we need the one that bites. So that's an add-on. And we're trying to figure out the size that we need, because that's another thing. We need to have so much reach, because we put our plows and spreaders on with these machines. So it's got to be high enough to get into the tandem and also be able to put it back into the back of the truck. So we got all those numbers. I got quite a few vendors that have sent me quotes. So I have everything with everything. So I'm only, actually I got the last one today. So I have all those numbers, new, used.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Alderwoman Lewis.
I just want to say thank you so much. Soldier Creek is really looking sexy with all the work that you guys put in with cutting a lot of that brush down, so I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Next is ESU's Technical Services Report for the month of July. Ms. Hall?
Good evening. The biggest things we had for the month, where we were focused on the Music Fest, of course, making sure all the electrical was adequate, and then, of course, the storm. That was a 3-day project for us. I had been on the phone with ComEd and in contact with the mayor from the day of the storm all the way through Monday. We had over 700 residents without power. Everyone was restored. I kept the alderpersons in those wards abreast as we got their residents restored. The other thing is this was just the other day, but it's important. Alderman Osinga, there was a comment pole hit at 1486 West Bourbonnais. It looks like it was a car accident. It broke in half. So we barricaded because we want to make sure safety first, the possibility of live wire. So I went ahead and escalated that, and they called in to Julie, so they're in the midst of getting that fixed, you know, as we saw the flags today. So
Thank you.
other than that, we're working on the Verkada cameras, and we're just continuing on with our projects.
Is there any questions for Ms. Hall?
I just want to say thank you for those updates. That was really helpful. I was able to get back in touch with people right away and let them know, so I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Just kind of an update too. You're trying to work, we've got a meeting coming up regarding the sound system, correct, in here?
Yes.
So we're trying to address that here. And so we've got, I think is it this week?
Yeah, the 22nd.
We have a meeting coming up on that to see what we can do to, there's been some tweaks and some things done, but we're continuing. We may be coming to you, it may need a lot more than just some tweaks to get where we need to get to, so.
Yeah. So we're kind of surviving on a wing and a prayer right now, so hopefully everything will maintain.
Any other questions for Ms. Hall? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our sewer services report. Mr. Newton?
Thank you, Mayor. We just had a handful of sewer calls last month. We made it through nearly 20,000 feet of sewer line in our area cleaning, and our camera trunk is back in action, so we've got just under half a mile of sewer and storm lines televised. We should be getting the preliminary data for the flow meter. That study, we should be getting that soon. And the manhole lining project is almost 100% complete. Still just a little bit more left to do on that. For the hydro relicensing, the recreation study is ongoing, and a socioeconomic study will begin soon. We have a historic preservation study that has to be approved by the State Historic Preservation Office. We're waiting to hear back from them before that begins. And the storm, we lost a lot of power in a lot of places. Stone Street was out, Hydro was out, but we have backup generators there, as well as a number of our lift stations. The only lift station that went out that we didn't have a backup generator was Station R, but we do have some pull-behind generators. We were able to get one out there. There was no loss of service, so it took a couple of days for that to all get restored, but everything's working fine and back in order now. And that's it.
Can you give a quick update regarding the dam bladder, kind of what happened there? I think I've told some people, but it'd just be good to let everyone know what happened there, what we've done to resolve it, and where we're at today.
Sure. So yeah, as you're probably aware that there was some issues with the dam bladder. That was us trying to be a little proactive and switch out the compressor and part of revamping the hydro, that was one of the first things that we wanted to do. It didn't go exactly as planned. We had a gauge that went out, and that was causing the issues at the time with keeping the air inside that bladder. That's why it deflated. And then it was just a matter of, once we got that working, kind of dialing it in, because it was a bigger, newer compressor. It took a couple of days, but we got that all figured out, and it's been back to normal since.
Any questions for Mr. Newton? He'll be back up here shortly. Alderman Marzak.
My only question is, why don't we have a secondary compressor tied into that system, in the event we do have one that, goes down?
Well, yeah, I know that, it seems like we should have that, but I mean, really honestly, in the 20 years that we've had that going.
Two times though.
Well, the time that it happened before was because of the storm. As far as switching out the generator, or the air compressor like this, I mean, it's really, that's a one-off thing. We should be good for many, many years now.
So this wasn't a power situation, it was a compressor situation.
Correct. This one was the compressor, yeah.
That pumps up the bladder. Has that part come in, the new part, the gauge, or we're still overriding right now until that comes in?
Yeah, we're not overriding. Everything is fine with that. The gauge still hasn't been installed, but all the other components are fine, and there's no overriding.
Any other questions for? Okay, thank you. Next up, we've got the lab services report. Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to announce that we got our preliminary results for the DMR QA study we do annually, and we've passed on all parameters. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge the lab staff. That's a very technical, challenging thing that takes a lot of attention to detail, and they really knocked it out of the park this year. Second, working through a few industrial issues. We've got a few industries that have had some samples in noncompliance. And then also continuing to work on the fats, oils, and grease issue that we've been having in Manteno. Just ongoing study there, working with engineers to try to determine the best course of action for that. Other than that, things are running pretty smooth, and lab's just getting samples done as normal.
Any questions for the lab department? We do have some flows that are kind of down right now just because of general maintenance and renovation, some things with Kensing and TSL, correct?
Yeah, a couple of our big industries have done planned maintenance over the last month or two, and so I expect those flows to rebound, but there's also some uncertainty as far as CSL goes because this is the first time they've had pre-treatment, so there's kind of no roadmap here for us to know exactly what's going to happen, but I expect those flows to rebound from their planned maintenance time.
Alderman O'Brien?
Do you have any idea how long it will take to determine the cause or the source of that fats, oil, and greases increase there?
Well, the engineer proposed that we kind of start with some studies, and so that's kind of where we're at, trying to gather data, determine we've got it narrowed down to a few industries in that area that we believe the issue's coming from, but it seems that each of them contributes differently at different times. So we're just going to have to come up with a strategy that kind of takes care of that issue as a whole. But we do have an idea of who's contributing to that problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for lab? Okay, thank you. We'll move into item 5B, and that is the financials. I believe you have those in front of you, and I will turn that over to the comptroller's office.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, the Assistant Comptroller, Paula Rogers, is going to present. We said at the beginning of this fiscal year that we would start to do it differently as she oversees all the issue, every financial component. We work together, but she does the heavy lifting, so she's going to present tonight. Thank you, Paula.
Okay, so I have included a restatement of April 30th. There wasn't really any change, any huge change, But since we were transitioning to me, I felt better pulling the numbers again and making sure that we were all up to date. As Elizabeth had mentioned, this is the last payment of bills where we're taking accruals to 2023. Going forward, it's closed now. We'll get that out to the auditors and get the audit underway soon. The only thing I would mention again on last year, we were 2.5% under budget on our expenses and over 11% over budget on the revenues. So we had a budgeted income of less than 50,000, and we're sitting right now at 2.8, and I don't expect it's going to change much after the audit. So we're in a really good position for last year. July, we're sitting at 25% of the year. It's pretty much running in line, but we are still on the expenditures about 2.3% under this year. We're not quite as much over on the revenues, though. There are some changes that industrial billing is expected to be lower this year, but we're still running well over our budgeted net income. So I think we're in pretty good shape there too. There is one thing that we added in the area of the revenues. We used to include the rubbish and the grass mowing totals in miscellaneous revenue. We broke them out separately just so I could tie out better to the individual GL accounts. So if, in case anybody notices that that's different, those two have been added back. Did anybody have any questions?
Is there any questions regarding, we'll start with the first 3 months of this fiscal year. So that'd be the form that you have dated July 31st, 2023. None there. Is there any questions regarding the expenditure and revenue report that ends April 30th, 2023? As I said, this will be pretty tight on at this point, and shouldn't be any changes to this, but this will be what will be filed for the last fiscal year. Okay. Thank you. We're now going to move on to old business, and really it kind of ties into new business, but I'm going to, Zach, you kind of gave an update on hydro, so I've got Neil's here tonight with us along with Zach. They're both working this together. I'll defer to Neil, and we have no unfinished business, but I'll let you kind of give a hydro update where we're at with the finances and the money, and then we'll jump into the new business part, but where we're at with the latest reports from them. So, there you go.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I guess I'll just kind of recap where we're at, how we got where we're at, and maybe a path forward on this project. I kind of took this project over with Zach, mid last year, when the previous superintendent was working with Sergeant Lundy on kind of formulating or coordinating an inspection of the superstructure and the underwater dam. That took pretty much all back half of last year. We finally got the report. I don't remember when we got it. Was it April? We got the finalized report in April. Since then, we kind of pivoted a little bit just because of how long things seem to be taking. Zach and I kind of discussed, and as well as the mayor, and we've been working with the contractor directly, Norcan Hydro, that Sergeant Lundy was working with, to kind of come up with a plan going forward. We kind of got this report, and it said, yeah, you need to do some things, but there wasn't a lot of specificity in what issues needed to be resolved. So in talking further with some reps from Norcan, they advised that we need to get turbine number 1, which has been at Kaiser Hydro in Michigan for the last 4 years. We need to get that turbine back and inspect the turbine, inspect the gearbox, and really get a better gauge as to the amount of work that needs to be done to restore this turbine to put it back in service.
So in discussing that with NORCAN, they said, well, we have a good relationship with Kaiser Hydro. You know, we'd be more than happy to take the lead on this, get this turbine back to our facility to inspect it, observe it being shipped from Kaiser Hydro to NORCAN Hydro, test it at their facility, give us a detailed report, an assessment of it, of the turbine and the gearbox. They also recommended we do a backup generator reconditioning assessment with another partner of theirs. So after having all these discussions with NORCAN, I know Zach's talked with Ian from NORCAN as well, very, very thorough, felt very good about the conversations we've had about them and about the direction that they think we should take this. And I concur with his assessment. I think we need to do the assessment, which is on later on in the agenda, to get a better idea of what sort of costs we're even looking at to put these 3 turbines back in service. He feels that, you know, I don't want to speak out of turn, but he feels turbine 1 does not need to be replaced. He thinks it can be rehabbed. We don't know what level that looks like. That's why we want to do the assessment. But he also feels that turbine 1 will be a very good gauge on the level of effort that it will take to put turbines 2 and 3 back into service. So we'll have a pretty good idea after we do this assessment on number 1, knowing what is going to be left to be done with the other 2 turbines to get this hydro facility back and fully operational. They did put some rough budgetary numbers in their proposal. Very, very high level. We don't have a lot of information to base this off of now, but this is the high-end range of what he would have expected. So I don't even want to put those numbers into the public realm yet, because I'd rather do the assessment and then come back with some more realistic numbers at that point. So that's kind of where we're at. The proposal, he sets out some time frames as far as when they'd be able to get started and when we can expect to have this assessment back. So essentially we would expect, you know, the condition assessment report to be basically 10 to 12 weeks after they're able to get on site, and he would try to facilitate being on site as soon as possible. The other benefit is we will get, after they get turbine 1 at their facility, which is in Ontario, Canada, assess it. This cost does include shipping it back to our hydro facility. So we will get the turbine back at the end of all this, which is what we want. We need the turbine. So, so I felt good about all the conversations I've had with Ian, which have been probably over the last 2 to 3 months. They've done a lot of these. They have a lot of good partners in the industry. And, you know, there's a lot of other work that needs to be done on the hydro superstructure and the dam as well, outside of just getting these turbines operational, which was in the inspection report that J.F. Brennan and Rizzo did last fall. So there's other work to be done other than just getting the turbines in place. We also have some control. We need to put in some new control system for the turbine. The one that's there is from the late 80s, so it's just out of date. You know, so those are all things that really probably we need to get a better handle on costs and prioritize. So that is the long-winded version of where we've come and where we're at right now.
So before we move on to new business, questions, Alderwoman Swanson.
So the 136 is to go pick it up from its current location, assess it, and deliver it back to us, but that doesn't have anything to do with fixing any problems that might exist?
Correct.
And I know we've been dealing with it for a while, so, I mean, what is the current, I mean, do we owe the people money who have it right now? I mean, I know we paid money for, I thought we...
Not to my knowledge, we don't owe them any money. I mean, I wasn't a part of all that with Kaiser. Maybe Zach would know better, but I know they gave us a very, very rough condition report on turbine 1, but it didn't go into the detail, the level of detail that we really need to be able to know what amount of work needs to be done on it. So I don't know, Zach, I don't know if you have anything to add. Yeah. So this would include NORCAN Hydro staff going to Michigan, observing the turbine and the gearbox being packaged up to make sure all the pieces were there, cataloging all those, having it shipped to Ontario at their facility, doing the assessment, and then having it repackaged back up and being shipped to our hydro facility.
Alderman Marzak.
Why would we go to all that trouble and have it shipped back to us in non-working condition? Why wouldn't we assess it, move on it, you know, because, I mean, shipping, very expensive.
Either way, it's going to have to be shipped here. I mean, that's a sunk cost in my mind. I mean, it's got to have to be here somewhere. So whether, I mean, if you want to defer the shipping costs until we're ready to do the work, I guess that's the conversation we can have. But in my mind, I would rather have our turbine here, you know, because it's been in Michigan for the last 5 years.
I'm just saying, you know, if
Yeah.
would be more prudent to have it, you know, after they inspect it, if it looks like it's a reasonable, you know, item to repair, wouldn't it be more reasonable to ship it to whoever's repairing it?
We can have that, we can certainly have that conversation with them. Once they've done the assessment, I think that's the main crux here is we don't really know what the level of work is yet. So they're just including the shipping back here because it's going to have to be shipped here whether they're doing work or not. Also, they didn't want to make the assumption they would be doing the work. So, you know, this is just an assessment right now. So we can have that conversation as we get further into it. They're not going to ship it back to us until we tell them to anyways.
Right.
So, you know, my thought was, well, let's just make sure we're getting it back as part of this because it's been in Michigan for the last 5 years.
Is this the generating portion, the generator, or the turbine portion, the shaft? My understanding is the shaft's there, correct?
It's the shaft and the gearbox, and
Right.
then we also have a generator reconditioning assessment in here as well.
Do we know what a new turbine equal to that would be?
Brand new?
Yeah.
He gives some very rough numbers in his email, and actually in the proposal, which I believe you have, to replace a turbine, we're probably looking at close to $1 million
Per turbine.
per turbine. So that's why we really want to get a good handle on it, and if we don't need to replace it, let's not replace it.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't seem like,
The-
I know the mayor wants to get this up and running, and the council and board do as well, but I think we want to be smart about our dollars here
Right.
and make sure we're not having a payback period of 40 years.
Right.
I mean, that's,
So 3 new turbines, it'd be
Right.
3 million just for those, and then we still haven't fixed anything else.
Right.
The repair cost is, they don't know, but they're anticipating somewhere between 250,000 to 500,000 per turbine, depending on the condition it's in.
yeah.
So the hope is that it'll have a 40-year lifespan being reconditioned, and all 3 of them can be done less than 7 figures.
And I think going forward, once we figure out whatever we end up doing with this hydro plant, and I spoke with Ian about this already, I said, we need to get somebody, whether it's Norcan Hydro or somebody, on an annual inspection and preventative maintenance program, so we're not in this position again. So they're coming out and assessing each turbine. They can take one out of service, check the bearings, you know, make sure everything's been lubricated properly, there's no stress on any of the elements of any of the turbines. Just every year inspect it, and if there's things we can do preventatively, that's usually way, way cheaper and more cost-effective.
Where the shaft is right now, I recall, didn't they have a quote in there for that facility? I mean, several years back when, because I remember seeing, you know, like the picture of the gearbox and the shaft at the facility. Where's that? Is that not?
They did a report. I don't have a copy of that. I know Norcam was going to be working with Kaiser to get that, but from my understanding, it is not to the level of detail that we need anyways. That's the most knowledge I have on that.
Thank you.
Also, I don't think they evaluated the gearbox. I think it was just the turbine, so.
Any other, Alderman Swanson?
Sorry, just one more
No,
question.
No, we're talking a lot of money here, so I'd rather talk about this now, so.
All right, so when, like for the other assessments on 2 and 3, that would be on-site assessments? They would be able to come and assess them here?
He thinks we don't need to do it on 2 and 3, that we can use this assessment on 1 as a gauge for 2 and 3 for a scope of work.
Okay.
So that's why I think this one being removed and already, you know, out of the hydro plant, you know, we would think turbine 1 would be a worst-case scenario for 2 and 3. So that's why we think this one is probably the best one to inspect anyways. It's probably in the worst condition, and it'll give us a basis to budget the rest of the project.
Thank you.
Yep.
So that brings us to new business, and you see before you there, you have in the packet there overall, but we're looking at just what we call preliminary engineering services, which is 2.3 pricing. That's a firm number using item 1, 2, and 3. So we're looking for a recommendation to approve items 1, 2, and 3 of the proposal for the inspection of Unit 1 in the amount of $136,300. We could, as you mentioned, find out once it's there, you know, again, do they end up doing the work to repair it before we ship it back here? Those are discussions we could have, but we could also have it looked at, you know, not to exceed or something there about who's going to do the work or whatever, but.
Correct.
But this is kind of a key step to get this piece that's been sitting in Michigan for 5 years back into our control at the very least, and have it inspected, and then whether it's repaired there or it's shipped back to here for somebody else to repair on site, we'll figure that out. But the goal is to get this going ASAP so we can, you know, again, my goal was, you know, I don't know if it's realistic, but I would love to say this thing is operational in spring of '25. So would it be sooner? Possibly. Could we get the one, we've kind of even budgeted, could we even get the third turbine working a little bit next year, a little bit, just so we can generate some things and go from there. But, you know, ideally, I'd love to say quicker, but I think we gotta be realistic. That could take 18 months to get this from, easily 18 months for everything there. Alderman Marzak.
Wasn't number 2 just a seal that was leaking oil? It spent like 50 grand on it, and that's why it got shut down.
So 3 seems to be working, was working okay, correct, Zach? We shut down because it's like anything. When you run something 24 hours, 7
Sure.
days, you're just going to wear it out. The system's designed to have 2 or 3 turbines running at one time and alternating them, kind of like the screw pumps down at Karma. Number 2 was working also, as you said, it was leaking oil, so that was shut down immediately, so we didn't cause any problems with the river or the water. Again, the hope is that 1 will give us an assessment, and then we can go in and fix 2 and 3, hopefully at minimal cost, and get that. But the biggest thing before we can even do anything there, and Zach's already working on some numbers there, is we have to get the dedicated power line that runs from the hydro plant down to the Karma plant. That has to be upgraded and modified to make sure that even when something's running, we're transferring the power properly through that dedicated line to the plant. So that'll be one of the first things we'll have to do before we even run a turbine. Alderwoman Johnson.
How are we planning to pay for this?
So ultimately, the long-term goal here is coming back when we have our next ARPA committee meeting. We're hoping to have, I don't want to allocate money from ARPA yet until we have a better handle of how much money this overall project's going to cost, but they're gathering that information now. That's what we're looking at there, is using as much ARPA money as possible for it. I think for the initial here, I haven't even talked to Comptroller Kubal yet, but I'm assuming right now this would just come out of some of our potentially operating budget or potential surplus that we've had here to work towards it. So, yes.
Have we secured a grant from Senator Joyce?
So, no, we haven't secured any financial grant. What he did get passed was some legislation that basically entities that are going, I'll call it green in a sense, to get some of their best credits and different things, they have to buy their power from solar, wind farms, or hydro plants. So they could potentially, there isn't that many hydro plants in the state of Illinois. You could have a project somewhere else that's going to want to get some power, or at least get some credits from the hydro plant towards that, or work it that way. And I don't have the details of the whole bill yet, but it's basically forcing people to look at Kankakee for an option of providing us some money in exchange for the power that we're creating.
Thank you.
So before you, we have a recommendation to allocate, to authorize enter into a contract with NORCAN in the amount of $136,300 to City Council for approval. We do have that on the council agenda for tonight. Because it is such a large number, we definitely want council approval for that to move forward, so.
Mayor, I make that motion.
So we have a motion from Alderman O'Brien to recommend the contract with NORCAN to City Council. Is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
We have a second from Alderwoman Swanson. Questions or comments? Roll call?
Alderwoman Lewis.
Aye.
Alderman Cruz.
Aye.
Alderman O'Brien.
Aye.
Alderman Oliva.
Aye.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Jones.
Aye.
Clerk Gall.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll be on your council agenda tonight for approval. We do not have a need for an executive session. So before we adjourn, I just want to kind of keep everybody informed of the superintendent's position. We did have that open. We received, if my understanding is probably about 7 to 8 applications for that, and we're going through some of the interview processes right now on that. We've got it set up with a committee that is interviewing the candidates, and then ultimately, once they make some recommendations from there and from HR department, we'll narrow down the list, and then we'll put together how we did this last time, and I'd like to do it again. I haven't even asked them yet, but last time it was myself, and we did the 2 senior aldermen to help with that interview process. So again, I would like, you both sit on the board, I'd like Alderwoman Swanson and Alderman Bryan, if available, to be part of that interview process, and then go from there for the superintendent role. So just keeping everybody informed. We're hoping sometime in the next 30 to 45 days. My understanding is, I have not been part of that process, but we've had some very good applications, and so we're very excited that we have a good set of people that potentially could fill that position. So that's the only update I have. Is there anything else from the alder persons? Okay, seeing none, it is 6:18. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Osinga. Is there a second? Second. We have a second from Alderman Jones. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a bit.